everybody, and welcome to Powerful Stuff. Okay, so it is hot outside. I just got back from the beach. I'm in my overalls era. I've been wearing overalls lately, and I found it super powerful, guys. It's like bringing out this different side of Meredith that we're all just getting to know in real time. Um, but yeah, I was thinking, as always, what do the powerful stuff listeners need to hear this week? What do I need to hear this week and be reminded of with you guys? And I was thinking of, you know, something that I talked to my own coach about, because coaches got to have coaches, coaches got to coach, and be coached. Um, but yeah, I was talking to them about this concept this week, which, it's so funny because sometimes we'll know concepts or talk to other people about them and then it's sometimes we need to be reminded ourselves of these things. So I know you're at a cliffhanger. You're like, Meredith, what are you talking about? What is the thing? And that is what it would look like or be like to release something with love, releasing it with love and allowing it to be what it is or to become what it's meant to be by not trying to control it, not having expectations around it. So this is kind of like a conglomeration, if you will, of some of our past episodes, right? Energetically cutting the cord from something, allowing acceptance so you can, you're not in denial of your reality, so you can fully accept what is and you can move forward from there. Or this idea of, releasing expectations, letting something be what it is, I guess, as per acceptance. So these are all very familiar themes. They all kind of go hand in hand with each other. And I'll share 2 examples around this, and then we'll go into some steps about how do we release something with love. So the concept of releasing something with love is like, allowing it to be what it is, letting it go, letting something new take its place. And oftentimes when we fully accept and release, the irony that we all know, the Murphy's Law, is that that's when something even better comes back to us. And releasing something with love is kind of our ultimate trust in ourselves and in the universe of saying, like, I know there's something even better out there for me. So I'm okay to release this, even if it's painful, even if it feels like a sunk cost, which it never is, but it can feel like that, I'm okay to do it. I'm okay to do it because I know that there's something even better out there for me. And so I'll give you guys my 2 examples. So example number 1, I got in a little kerfuffle, as I like to call them, with my husband when we were in Jackson Hole. And we kind of get into these little, for as much work as we do with each other, going on our quarterly couples retreats, going to our own couples coaching. Of course, we're all human and we still get into certain patterns when we have disagreements that kind of sometimes are in the short term like a stalemate, because what ends up happening is he'll say something that might hurt my feelings or make me feel like that was unfair or uncalled for. And then I get really sad and just want him to reaffirm, but then he feels like he's like in the right, or, also we both kind of have this fairness thing triggered versus like throwing the white flag, so to speak. And then he ends up like not wanting to reward my behavior, quote unquote, of what he perceives as me stonewalling him, like ignoring him, which is not what I'm doing. I'm actually kind of going into self-preservation of just like mothering myself of like, it's okay, Meredith, I've got you. And so then it kind of leads to this impasse. And then when those things happen now, I notice myself going into these stories of like, oh my gosh, Spencer doesn't listen. This is happening again. I can't believe this is happening again. And then it makes me even more angry, right? It makes me even more angry because I'm like, oh my gosh, he's not listening. Like, what if he doesn't change? Like, this is how Meredith is feeling in the moment of that happening. I know that we're both committed to working through it, right? But in the heat of the motion. And so, that happened, and it took us a little bit longer than both of us would have liked, if we're being honest with ourselves, to come to a more peaceful acceptance around it and resolution around it. And I was telling my coach this, and I was like, yeah, it was frustrating because then I got, triggered of like all of these times Spencer's done this in the past, and how I said this is a pattern. And because it's a pattern, I'm so frustrated he hasn't changed yet. And, my coach was like, what would it look like for you to kind of release that thought with love? Because it's like what happens, kind of like the Byron Katie stuff, like what happens when you believe that thought of he's not going to change, or this is just a pattern. And I get so annoyed. It's like I get really frustrated. I don't you know I get defensive. I don't think that it's actually going to work. Like I can't trust him to take what I'm saying into consideration. And so it makes me even more and more aggravated. So he was like, what would it look like if you just released that thought with love? Who would you be? What would that highest self Meredith do? Which is funny because it's like an exercise I take my clients through of like envisioning the old pattern, playing out and how you feel in that scene, and then pulling the pattern out and, reimagining it as your highest self. And how does your highest self respond? So as a reminder, Meredith, take a dose of your own medicine. And yeah, I was like, I guess I wouldn't project that onto him, right? If I want the perception from people knowing that like Meredith is a constantly evolving and growing human, I wouldn't want to freeze frame someone else in time. And also patterns like are hard to, change immediately. Like they take time. They take stretching our awareness. They take fumbling and falling and then doing it again and getting up a little, better the next time. But yeah, so all of that is to say that he was like, what would it look like if you released it with love? It's like I would have been calm and curious when he first said that. I wouldn't have projected perhaps onto him of like, oh my gosh, you always do this. This always happens. I would have allowed this time to potentially be different instead of like already getting like a little bit more angry because this is like a pattern that I've heard before. And kind of leading with example. Like I always like to say in more of that and in our powerful stuff, communities, be the catalyst, like not just be the catalyst for the community you want to create, but be the catalyst for how you want your partner to respond to you in an argument, or be the catalyst for how you want a friend to respond to you in an argument. And so it's like, what would that Meredith do? Well, I wouldn't have projected onto him. I would have gotten more curious. I would have, said like, this is, I'm not going to take this as malintent. I know that we're both on the same team, so I'm sure there must be a misunderstanding here. And I'm going to release like the idea of that pattern with love. And I feel like, talking to my coach about it, and then also really practicing it with Spencer the last week, where there have been other things either of us have said to trigger the other, and instead of latching onto it and like looking at it as evidence to prove that like we were right or one of us was right, and like they are going to trip up again, and this is evidence that they are in that pattern again. It was just like letting it go. Like, hey, this is where either of us would usually get triggered. Like, can we respond with love? Can we respond with acknowledgement? And it's so easy to see it play out now, like as the third party observer of my own actions and Spencer's of like, and I've even, we both have said that to each other this week, like where we saw like, this is where we could have gone down that path again, being like pausing and being like, hey, this is something that, would trigger me in the past. I'm curious, like, what's the intention of bringing it up today? And yeah, just reaffirming that like I love you, and I really feel like we've worked really hard this last week to heal from that little argument, that kerfuffle, as we say. So wow, when we leave space like that, it's become easier and easier, like not to take that low hanging fruit of like, ooh, like, I could just like, this is evidence, but it's become easier and easier to not do that. And I feel like our admiration and affection for each other has gone up and up. Imagine that, what a funny coincidence, as we haven't been kind of like looking to prove our own internal assessment of like patterns in the other person's behavior and whatnot. So that's one example, guys. And like, as we do that, it's like allowing more space for surprise and delight to come in. We both have been doing things that we know will make the other really happy. Like I love to lay out on the beach under the full moon and do a full moon meditation. And Spencer was really tired last night, but he knew it was important to me. And so instead of it feeling like I was asking him, he was like, hey, I would really love if we could meditate under the full moon on the beach. What do you say? Like, and I knew that was a really sweet way of him being like, I know this is important to you and I'm going to pretend like it's my idea versus you asking me. So all of that's to say, it's like everything started to shift when, both of us decided to be the catalyst and be like, okay, we're not going to just wait for the other to bend over backward and apology and be like, you are so right and I am so wrong. But we both had to swallow our own ego and our own pride a little bit and, release things with love. So that is example number 1, y'all. I hope that made sense because we're still in the processing phase of like articulating it, the nuances of it. And then the second one was I was frustrated that I had talked with somebody about something and we had, both kind of talked about it going a certain way. And then as it was unfolding, I feel like it's kind of gone a different way. And, but I had already kind of like agreed to, the part that I was controlling and they had agreed to the part that they were doing. And, I thought about like, should I say something like, this is super annoying for me. Like I'm really annoyed by this, but we had already kind of been through this a few times. And so I was talking to my coach about this as well. And it was funny. It's always funny how like these unrelated things are parallels and invitations in their own way to kind of like bring things into alignment with like the same kind of, metaphysical, spiritual action item. But yeah, he was like, if you had already kind of made your mind up or decided on this thing, like what good is it to kind of continue to harp on these things where that overall it was still like you're still happy with like the steps that you took or what you agreed upon. What would it look like to let this go with love? To not like harp on this or be tit for tat on something, but to actually like surrender and to really, trust that even if it doesn't come back to you from this person or in this way, it's going to come back to you in peace of mind and in trust that something even better or even greater is on your side because you're not like holding on to something as, what is it? Oasis would say, don't look back in anger. Oh my gosh. Great song. So, oh my gosh. Okay. I need to play it again so I can get the melody better when I hum it for you guys. But, that was also like, it's so obvious, but it was a great reminder of like being resentful, going tit for tat when ultimately I don't want to change like the overall direction of like what I decided upon in this situation. It is going to bring me A, my peace of mind, and B, like a trust that like I'm proud of like how I'm showing up. I'm proud of like the integrity that I have in a situation. And as we kind of release, we get all of that energy that we were trying to control or hold on to or wait for someone to slip up or wait for them to prove us right. We get all of that energy back to ourselves. And as we get it back to ourselves and reinvest in ourselves, that creates our personal magnetism and adds to our personal magnetism, which ends up attracting things from these other areas in unexpected ways. And I guess a more obvious, like common example of this second anecdote, as I'm sharing mine, I'm like, well, trying to protect the identity of all of, the people in these situations that I bring up, who, by the way, I love them all and would not bring these things up if they weren't, internally resolved in my heart. As someone once said, share from the scar and not from the wound, meaning once you've processed things, sharing what the wisdoms, the takeaway was versus when you're like in the middle of the tornado. Oh my gosh, where was I? Okay, yeah, a commonplace example We're going a little rogue today, guys. Bear with me. It's crazy. It's the full moon. All this stuff is happening politically in America. Powerful stuff. Podcast is just going all in, all at it from every direction with this theme today. But yeah, a more common theme or example, right, is like your, like you decide to like, well, actually, no. Okay. I'll just tell you general ones. But yeah, you decide to like, or you want to quit your job, it's not the right fit for you. And it's like, maybe you're holding on, but then you finally decide to quit. And of course, as soon as you decide to quit, like an amazing new job offer comes through. And maybe there's annoying things with like your old job. Like you hear some stuff back at the office or about someone else who's so annoying getting a raise. And maybe that really ruffles your feathers, but then you like release it and you're like, you know what? I don't work there anymore. I made this choice. And then like that new great job offer comes in. So that's kind of like the idea of it. It's like you've made a decision and maybe you look back at it. There's still a few things that annoy you, but then you're like, no, this is all reminder that I did make the right decision, in fact. And even though I perceive sunk costs, like actually nothing is a sunk cost because I learned from it and it was like preparing me exactly as I needed to for this new perfect thing to come in. So both of these examples, though slightly different, are all to say like it's really powerful when we ask ourselves, like, what do we gain by holding on to something? What do we gain by controlling something? And how has that worked out for us in the past? So I guess let's just dive in, guys. Let's dive in to doing it for yourself. So step number 1, get out your pen and pencil or turn on your noggin. It was already turned on though, because we've been at it for almost 20 minutes now, just like vibing together. Anyways, so yeah, what have you been trying to control in your life, and why have you been trying to control it? Or like, and what does it bring to you when you try to control it, right? When you try to look for patterns or look to be proven right about this thing, or you just have this like innate feeling that it's not going to work out, or that person's going to prove you wrong, like, in a way that's kind of control and that's kind of expectations, albeit like the more negative side of it, right? But what is like something in your life where you find yourself doing that? And what is the outcome? How do you usually feel? What does that result in? What pattern or cycle or feedback loop does that constantly keep doing, right? Einstein once said this quote that's like, being crazy is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So what is that for you? And then the second question is, how are you able to let it go with love? What would it require of you to let it go with love? And maybe you do need to like write out, kind of like I said in past episodes, that like fuck you letter and get out that anger in your heart. Maybe you need to go for a run and just like pound it out on the pavement, or go to a boxing class to be able to let it go. But like, what do you need to do to let it go with love? And what would it look like to let it go with love? How would you show up as your highest self if you knew that letting this thing go was the best decision ever? Or letting go, and it can be letting a thing go, or it can be letting go your old story, letting go your old reaction. How would you need to show up to be able to do that? And what do you need to do to clear out that energy? So step 2 is kind of like a 2-part question, right? Getting out whatever residual anger or frustration about this thing or stagnant energy. And then like, who do you need to be to do that? What do you need to believe that that was the best decision ever? And then step number 3, I would really just say is, viewing the other person or thing involved with compassion, seeing their inner child. Like, how are they doing the best they can with what they have? How are they also hopefully learning from this? How is you kind of seeing the empathy, having the empathy for them, seeing them as their inner child? How is you doing that, shifting the scene. How is it shifting the scene, even if you feel like initially they're not doing it for you or they're not being fair? If you can kind of put that ego or tit for tat aside, how are you able to see they're doing the best they can with what they have? And how might you, number 3 too, I'm like part A and part B of number 3. Part B, how might you even thank this person? In the future, if you're like, this was the best decision ever, how might you thank them? What if you found out in heaven or the afterlife or whatever you believe, that every single person in your life was a perfect teacher to prepare you for who you were meant to be? How would you thank this person if they were one of your teachers? What have they taught you, and why are you grateful? And then step number 4 is what becomes possible when you let it go? What might happen? How could this be the best decision ever? What energy can you call back to yourself? Okay, first and foremost, what energy could you call back to yourself? What energy do you gain from not holding on to this thing, not holding on to resentment? How do you want to reinvest that? That will feel nourishing and empowering for you. And then, like, how could this be the best decision ever? What might be the best decision ever about it? And it could be like, what if by letting this thing go with this other person, it opens up this opportunity over here? What if by not holding on to resentment here, it actually gives me the space to have this creative energy to unblock this? What if by, letting go of this like company that I had with somebody, while it's painful or it might feel like a sunk cost, what if it gives me my idea and the space for like the company that is actually the thing for me? What if by releasing attachment to this ex or situationship that I'm in, what if I do that and that actually, opens up possibility bandwidth for genuine connection with another partner? What if it creates the space for this other person to come in? So step 4 is really taking action on what would it be to look like, this was the best decision ever. If I could look back in 10 years and be like, wow, it had to fucking happen that way. Okay. So hopefully you've gotten your 4 steps down, and then let's just seal it in with a little medi. So if you want to close your eyes, taking a deep breath in, bringing a smile to your lips, and then sighing it out, letting it go, falling down your toes, out into the floor, your breath. Another breath in, feeling your breath come up your nostrils, up, touching your third eye, awakening your third eye, and exhaling it out. Once again, feeling it like a wave wash over you. And then third and deepest breath in, holding at the top, squeezing everything at the top, feeling your breath awaken the space around your brain, around your third eye, opening up the crown of your head, and exhale everything out. Returning to this natural, deep breath, and just seeing the thing, the person, the situation, the reaction that you're ready to release with love. Firstly, seeing yourself almost like you're watching yourself on a movie screen in your mind's eye, seeing yourself holding on to this thing. Noticing all the heaviness and tension as you watch yourself holding on to this thing, trying to control. Noticing how this heaviness and tension affects you in the scene, how it affects those around you. Noticing how it robs you and drains you of energy. And then imagine just seeing like your inner child holding this tension. And just looking at them in the scene, looking at yourself in the scene, seeing that inner child in you, and just having so much compassion for that version of you who just wants to protect you, wants to control, to help bring happiness to you in the best way that they can perceive it, even though it's causing tension or anxiety. And imagine placing your hand on the heart of that version of you in the scene and just pulling out all of this heaviness, all of this weight, until there's nothing left of the heaviness inside of you. And just imagine holding it in your hands, rubbing your hands together, alchemizing it, transforming it into beautiful golden light. And then placing it back in your body, in the body of that you in this vision, feeling them light up with light, feeling yourself light up with light, with this golden light lifting your spine, lifting your face, bringing a smile to your lips. And now watching you with this golden light as your highest self. With so much deep trust, cut away any remaining energetic cords to this old pattern or old behavior or thing you're holding on to. And as you cut this cord, just saying thank you to whatever thing or pattern is being released. And as you cut it, imagine it slowly just shriveling up into soil, in your mind's eye, shriveling away into soil beneath your feet, bringing this mystical, beautiful gold to the soil underneath your feet. And then watching the scene play out now with so much extra space, having let this thing go with love, and having feel it come back to you in this new way through this soil, through this golden soil underneath your feet. Now watching the scene unfold, noticing how you're moving through the scene now in complete surrender without control. Noticing how you're able to give your best energy to those around you. And then asking the scene to show you an even zoomed out future flicker of your future self, of how this had to happen exactly as it did, asking it for what space is being created for what you're ready to call in. How is it creating the perfect space for what you're ready to call in? Getting a beautiful vision there. And deep peace that it's all unfolding perfectly. And then just asking this you in the vision, what is your next step? What is the perfect next thing you can do? What is a perfect reminder to be able to release whatever you need to release with love? Who do you need to be? What do you need to do it? Trusting whatever comes. And then thanking them, taking a deep breath in. Exhale it out. Another deep breath in. Exhale, arriving back in this space. Opening your eyes when you're ready. And feeling hopefully that golden light pulsing through your fingers, your toes, the crown of your head right now. And then just to reiterate the steps, the first step is just when you don't release something with love, whether it's a pattern, a thing, what is that costing you? How is that draining you? What ends up happening when you try to control, when you don't release this thing with love, when you don't have trust? And why are you afraid of releasing it? What do you fear will happen if you release it, if you shift it? And then the second question, who do you need to be to release this? What do you need to do? What do you need to release? Who do you need to be? Right? And the second question is when you can come into like, what emotion do you need to release first? to be able to clear this? And then who is that version of you who does this thing? And then that third step is like, how would it feel to release this thing with love? You know, what if you were told that this person is your greatest teacher, or this thing was your greatest teacher? What are they teaching you? And like, how does that version of you look? And then the fourth one is like, what becomes possible when you do release it with love? What energy can you reinvest in yourself, in the world around you? Why might it have had to happen this way? And then finally, you know, I love a good action item. What is the next step you can take to do the thing? You know, for instance, with me and Spencer, it was like, not get triggered when not allow myself to bite when he said something that I might have found triggering, and instead responding with curiosity and with love, and kind of going out of my way to have the response that I would hope he would have, and to do things that bring, if I want him to adore me more, that bring more adoration to him, for example. And so that's my wish for you this week, guys, that you find this thing that you're releasing with love, and you create your own little ritual around doing it, and see what space it creates for possibility. Let me know what happens. And if you have someone in your life that you're like, they really need to release this thing, I see how it's hurting them, or whatever, send them this episode. Give them a little dose of powerful stuff so they can release it and step into their most powerful version of self, knowing that by sending it to them, you know, you're helping them hopefully catalyze back into their power and call all of this energy back to themselves. So I hope you have a powerful week. I hope that this has been powerful for you. And please let me know what other topics that you want to hear me speak about. We're really co-creating this powerful stuff journey together, and I am so excited to be on it with you. And I will see you next week for more powerful stuff.